Okay, so just like everybody else, all through this weekend and the previous week, the open source space has been taken over by OpenClaw, or Moltbook previously, or Claudebot previously, right? Of course, the promise here is that you'd have a personal AI assistant, and my intention here is to try and show you how you can, maybe not want the same exact thing on Databricks. What you're trying to build is something like a workplace AI, let's just say that. And I tried to put together a prototype of what this would look like for autonomous enterprise AI systems, right? The idea here is that you, of course, go back to the first principles where, this was just Cloud Agent SDK hooked up with a bunch of skills, and the skills would potentially call different MCP servers, right? So we don't actually need this open, I keep forgetting the name of this thing, OpenClaw, but we could still replicate the foundational principles to build on the different levels of autonomy on Databricks, right? So you have, this project. I'm calling this project Aladdin. The idea would be to add in all the agents, all add in kind of thing, and the idea is to demonstrate that you could have an increasingly, growing additive nature to how you build these complex autonomous systems. So let me go through this. Currently, the problem is that you have these large organizations. Pick any large organization that you work with, or maybe you work in a large organization. They have these diverse pockets of expertise. You might have marketing team doing their own agents, and supply chain doing their own thing, finance doing their own thing. So essentially, there is no method to the madness today. They might be using Databricks, they might be using some other product to build this. The quality of the agent itself is highly questionable for the most part. If you're doing this with Databricks, of course, you can have some assurances if you're doing evals and governance around your agents. But the underlying statement here is that the time taken to build any of these agents right now is at an all-time low. Anybody and the grammar can build one. And so just about everybody's building it. And so there's like this massive sprawl. What is lacking, and it's very clear, is that we don't have structured thinking around what it is that we're trying to build and how we go about building this. Oftentimes at Databricks, we end up finding that is what we need to consult customers for. Just try and inform them how to think about these problems. But then, more importantly, I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is how do you compound benefits of building agents? Maybe you have a small agent that works on a little thing on the side here that does like some valuable stuff for you, but how do you build on top of it? Essentially, think of this like a Lego block. Each agent could be a Lego block, or each workflow could be a Lego block. How do you, make sure that by adding Lego blocks, you're building something that is bigger than the individual pieces, that the sum of the whole is actually greater than the little parts that make it, right? So it's not just about managing the sprawl, but it's also about benefiting methodically over time. So this is why you need both, not just innovation like the ones that you see in the open source space currently, but also you need governance alongside with it. So if you had properly governed assets that you can build on top of, and you can somehow curate experiences that are literally, have zero cognitive overload on the end user, then that's a win, right? So that's kind of the thing that we want to do, and that is what this weekend project is trying to direct towards. Originally, it was like this chat UI project, but then over the last maybe a week, I converted this to this ability to demonstrate these things directly on Databricks. Okay, so we have what's called as Project Aladdin, and this is essentially, think of this like a chat UI that can demonstrate multiple levels of autonomy. And levels of autonomy become super important because I don't want to use jargon that confuse people. So in fact, if you think about a large language model, you can interact with the large language model without any tools, and that's just like, let's call this level 0 in terms of autonomy. And level 1 could be where it's acting like an assistant, meaning you give it some docs and you're chatting with it, maybe finding specific aspects from this doc, or maybe it's giving you a better version of the same doc. Essentially, the scope here is individual productivity. And then you go to level 2, and level 2 is where it becomes an agent system, or essentially an agent, where you're moving away from giving it some one doc and asking it Q&A, and now you're actually asking it to do some stuff for you, and it's going to provide some insight to you potentially. And this is what we typically see a lot in enterprises, and this is what they want to build. At Databricks, we have this product called Agent that makes this super simple to stand on the shoulders of our amazing research team, and we just GA'd the knowledge assistant, which uses a technique called instructor retriever to make sure that you're able to reason over your knowledge sources in a really specific, pointed way and get high quality results. And I think we'll be GAing our supervisor agent maybe this week, I think. I'm not sure. But companies are trying to pour dollars into research here and to try and ensure that they're able to eke out the maximum quality. And so this requires some methodical thinking around what metrics you're trying to improve and what it is that you're trying to, drive in the organization in terms of change, in terms of access to important material that might be, value adding to your organization. And now I would say things like, OpenClaw are like these autonomous systems, but there's no real blueprint for it for organizations. But then think of this project Aladdin as something that demonstrates this kind of blueprint, right? The idea would be that you would curate pretty much all of the things that you have as an organization know-how, and you would do this using skills. Of course, Anthropic talks about how to use skills to basically bring best practices and capture ideas and processes and express them through a combination of skills and MCPs. But you also can build agents and call the agents a part of the skills, where the agents themselves are benefiting from the research that's being done by our brilliant Mosaic AI team, right? Which means we can then build this single system that can pretty much benefit everybody in the organization. So by doing this alone, you get compounding returns where each one of those Lego blocks, when you add them together, is going to give you exponential returns, right? So this is how you take a structured method where you do a crawl, walk, run method, and then you essentially get positive nonlinear returns for the investment you're making on, in this case, Databricks. So essentially, what does this app solve? It is a prototype of a minimally evolvable product that demonstrates multiple levels of autonomy, just tries to clarify to the end user what it is that you are shooting for. And then once you have some clarity, it makes it easy for you to anchor in a particular level of autonomy and say, hey, here's what we want to build towards, right? And then why and how we do this, it heavily leans on our foundational components at Databricks, which means it ensures governance and also drives this notion that both innovation and governance can coexist, right? And currently, this is like I said, a blueprint that shows a bunch of different things. But if you are trying to build a hackathon or something like that, you can pretty much take this and use it for that purpose. A little bit of tweaking, you can actually deploy this to production apps. So by doing this, eventually you'll see that you'll be able to move towards level 3 autonomy on top of Databricks. So instead of having this disjointed line of business goals, you're able to put them together to get a meaningful outcome from all of these different things. Essentially, in our case, our customers are going to experience compounding effect of building on top of Databricks. So this snowballing effect that we have is what we care about. We want to make sure that your step change produces exponential results over time. And so what does the app entail? Just very quickly before we show the demo, is the front end is Flutter. Right now I'm running it as a WASM app, a WebAssembly app on Databricks as a web app. But of course you can transpile that to iOS, Android, desktop, right? So originally I called this when this was just a pure chat app, it was Brick Chat UI, and the idea was to have a single entry point into all things Databricks. And now it's evolved into this project Aladdin, and so that's what you get, from a front end perspective. You can also use voice input. It uses the browser APIs for quick responses, and then essentially routes that into fast API endpoints with smart endpointing. So depending on what you do, it automatically changes to different models. And then if you have agents that you have curated, which most teams tend to do with agent bricks, you can then use skills to navigate between different agent bricks. And all of this is backed into Lakebase. There is an admin part of the app where administrators, based on the upstream entity can be provisionally given access to that part of the app, and they can say, hey, this agent is something that we want to enable access to for like the larger organization, but this other agent, we don't want that to be accessed by anybody else because it might be useful for somebody else, or maybe not this audience, right? So we have that admin app that allows us to dynamically build skills. We also have, when anytime somebody is talking to, let's say, a PDF or a PowerPoint document or a text file, they're able to then use that to, we can pick that up, save that to volumes, and it's scoped to the user because now we know who the logged in entity is, and also the downstream object can then be easily mapped to that user, right? It also packages in a few skills for developers, like things like applying a brand specific theme, maybe a company specific theme, or deploying directly to Databricks. All this can be skillified, if you will. You just convert that to a skill and give it to Claude, and Claude can run. And then the app specific skills could be workflows and processes and know-how that is specific to your organization that you want to make available to the app itself. So that being said, we have I'm going to show you what this looks like. Yeah, I'll close this. So on this side you have Aladdin, and you have BrickChat. The previous iteration of the app. These things can change. So I'll kind of will show you this part here, and we can go from there. So again, it's got the light theme, dark theme thing that you can change. It's got the ability to track your historical conversations, and then we also have some settings information here where you can stream results. I need to change this. This is all being done in the recent past, so I can change it. If you want the text-to-speech to play back instantly after we get feedback, you can turn on the eager mode. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and save some tokens there, some dollars there. And then the provider right now is DeepGram. You got like a bunch of different voices here. All of that can be configured. But the main thing that I want to show you is if you have the autonomous mode turned on, you can discover pretty much all of the agents that are running in. Could be anything. I'm just showing dynamic skill curation here. You could also have static skills packaged into the application, but from a dynamic skill curation standpoint, you can get like pretty much anything that is running in this environment. I'm going to turn this guy off, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to turn this one on. And the metadata here is the agent is capable of answering questions about sales and customer analytics. In addition to this, the agent should be able to answer questions about investor presentation and earnings call data. So this is like our Mars endpoint, and that is using a fictitious company's data, all synthetic data that I generated, and it is essentially this guy here, right? So you have an agent endpoint and a Genie space. I'm just curating this here inside of Aladdin. I mean, it could be any number of these agents. The point is, you can discover these agents, and then you can sync that to a skill, and that would go sync it up to a manifest file, and this manifest file can then be used by the app at runtime. So when you ask for it, that is what it's going to use. So for example, if I'll go from level 0, or in this case level 1 to level 2 to level 3, I'm going to turn off autonomous mode, and then you can immediately see I have like some stuff hooked up. Level 1 would be something like this, where you have this press release, open this up, and you'd say something like, hey, can you summarize this document for me, please? I'm looking for the top insights here. And off it goes. It knows now that it needs to go pull another endpoint. It uses Claude Sonnet 4.5 here. It uploaded this document into Databricks volume. So next time when you come back at a later time and talk to it, it knows that that's where it needs to load from. So let's say this is like this chat with your agents, chat with your documents use case, which is the first part, right? So that's like level 1. And so let's say if I want to do this with level 2 autonomy, now I just want to talk to this knowledge assistant, and I ask the question where I want to say something like, what can you do for me? Let's escape out of it. What can you do for me? Something like that. And that should literally fire off the request to our endpoint and stream results from our agent endpoint here in just a second. So off we go. And by the way, I'm not editing any of this. This is like literally February 2nd, 1:56 p.m. And I'm hoping this thing, oh yeah, there you go. It works. And so it comes back, of course, with this, you could have the reasoning process.
Hello, I'm here to help you with information about BJ's Wholesale Club. As part of our commitment to taking care of the families who depend on us, I can assist you with several areas. First, the Code of Ethics and Business Conduct. I can answer questions about BJ's Code of Business Ethics, which reinforces our commitment to ethics, integrity, and the laws that govern our business. It also complements our many policies.
So this doesn't matter, right? So I mean, you have this thing. This is nothing new. I mean, you can make this happen in most of the application, modern applications here. And you can also download it after it's like done building. You have like a little download button that allows you to download the insight. This is really useful if you're building like a knowledge system that has like is traversing through multiple knowledge sources, and it's building out, let's say, an executive report. You don't expect the executive to sit down and read everything. Instead, if they get like a little audio response feedback, and they can listen to it whenever they want to, right? So that's great. That's level 2. And what we really want to demonstrate is this level 3 autonomy, right? So just like if you turn this on, and again, you can pair this with pretty much any of the skills that you curate statically. And maybe, there will be a future where potentially Databricks would have a skills repository inside of the catalog where organizations can, move skills that they vetted into it. And then we can use that to hydrate the skills for the agent to be using it. So again, it takes inspiration here from the same OpenClaw setup, which is you have Claude SDK, Agent SDK, and then that uses a specific skill. As you can see here, I'm going to ask it, hey, do you have access to any specific specialized Databricks agent that I can access to? It's okay, I can make that mistake. I'm hoping that the agent will catch this and come back with a response. It's checking the routing configuration, and it's going to say, hey, perfect, I got like a agent manifest file. And it looks like, I have access to this Mars endpoint. That's great. And then you can say, okay, well, question about sales data, yada, yada, yada. Okay, let's do this. Find out what the top 5 stores are in terms of sales. And now it should really be able to use that, right? So, sends the request to Mars, and then like it's just waiting for Mars to finish up, and then comes back with the response. Now, if you had many of these agents, of course, you can, it'll decompose the question and send it back to like multiple agents and do the normal thing that it typically does in the multi-agent setting. Or if you had another skill where you had to pair this with, a skill in terms of a workflow that you want to express, you can do that as well. But the idea here is this takes you to the notion of how workplace AI is made possible inside of Databricks, where it brings governance. Like you have this method to the chaos, but you also are able to, put together interesting experiences such as this one right here. Of course, so again, we have this is what is powering all of this, and it's deployed right into Databricks apps, as you can see it. If any questions, reach out. I just wanted to quickly make this and share this out with people that are interested.